All right, everyone. So at this point, a lot of you have already seen kind of what's going on with the double S rank equipment in terms of a little bit of new updates, getting new resources, seemingly a little bit more free-to-play viable than a lot of people thought. But I figured today I'd go line by line through each of these equipment pieces and compare directly to the game as we go along and really give out some more flushed out thoughts, because I kind of ran through it in my previous video and I've had a little bit more time to think about each one of these, and well, I think there's some that look exceptionally exciting. And of course, the first one on the list is the Blade of Justice. Now, the two initial effects, the green one, the uncommon, and the blue one, the rare one, seemingly are just kind of combinations of other effects that we already have with the current weapons, but a little sugar sprinkled on top. As an example here, if you look, Blade of Justice here, the green effect is global attack. We have that as the epic effect for Blade of Justice. So a little bit, just 10% extra effect. We also have combo damage plus 45%. This is combo damage plus 50%. So again, just extra. Now, the other thing that's important is the rage skill for the Blade of Justice. You're going to get the judgment effect here, which is extra combo damage, and you're just going to deal damage, attack damage to enemies, and apply that judgment to them. Now, for this one, you're going to get extra HP or damage per HP percentage lost. So the Soul of HELOS is basically the effect that anytime you perform a combo, you're going to get extra damage on each combo hit, which is kind of ridiculous. It makes combos exceptionally powerful in of themselves, not actually the sword chi that happens after you combo like a Skysplitter. It's just the actual combo, and the normal attacks that you're dealing is what the strength of Blade of Justice actually is. Now, if you look further, so yes, you have the Soul of HELOS, but then also on the legendary effect, if you compare that directly, the legendary effect here is just initial rage plus 75, which is honestly kind of horrible. Like, that is a pretty mediocre effect. And then the mythic effect is just combo rate on judgment targets extra combo percentage chance, which is also pretty horrible. It's one of the reasons why Blade of Justice seemingly loses a little bit of viability in the later game, although there is some combinations with Raphael these days which kind of negates all skill damage and puts it all into your basic attacks. Well, this Blade of Justice is the perfect kind of combination with Raphael, which is why it's even an option these days. Raphael was a great addition. But then if you compare it to the HELOS Warblade here, you're now going to make sure that those Soul of HELOS also inheritance the normal attack critical rate and damage boost effects, counts as a normal attack and combo hit in of itself. So you combo, the Soul of HELOS pops off, but now with the legendary effect, it's going to be increased by the crit rate, it's going to be increased by the normal attack bonuses, the combo hit bonuses, etc. So this Soul of HELOS is going to be a massive crit hit that's going to pop off every single time you combo, kind of like doubling your combo effect, in that, like, when you hit with a normal attack with Blade of Justice, that combo hits with crit damage, with normal attack bonuses. Now the Soul of HELOS kind of doubles that up. That's incredible. And then the mythic effect is just going to increase that damage even further. And then the immortal or the double S effect is to convert normal attack damage into skill shields. Now, in my previous video, I talked about how you get a little bit extra tankiness, but upon reevaluating, kind of going through line by line, this is actually just an incredible buff to the Blade of Justice. And honestly, this might be the biggest buff out of all of them, reviewing through each of the weapons. Blade of Justice was never considered an end game amazing weapon. It's one of the weapons that was a great early game option because it was on the banner with Bloody Grail, a Judgment Ring, and all this stuff. Come Raphael, who kind of negates all skill damage, you have Blade of Justice coming in as the perfect weapon pairing, and it does amazing work. It does massive amounts of damage because of the normal attack and combo damage scaling. This weapon, unlike the Skysplitter, is focused in on the actual damage multipliers from the normal attack and combo damage. This looks incredible. The amount of damage increasing that you could see from the HELOS Warblade looks like it's just going to fit perfectly with that Raphael combination and massively improve the Blade of Justice. Again, if you just compare this, basically all these prior three stats don't even matter because you're just getting literally better versions in the HELOS Warblade. Then the legendary effect and mythic effect basically did nothing because, yes, the initial rage, you get a little bit more frequent rage attacks in the initial start, but you're already getting those rage hits with all the rage generation that you're getting from the normal attacks. And then the combo rate didn't matter at all. Like, it literally didn't matter because you overcapped on combo rate in most situations with what the build you're running with, because Blade of Justice giving you that extra combo rate as a basic stat. And things like, you know, Vulture giving you the combo count, and then things like random pets giving you extra combo rate, Diego giving you extra combo count is going to increase your combo rate as well. You always had maxed out combo rate for the most part, so the mythic effect didn't do anything. This giving you essentially double damage on your combo hits is incredibly powerful, and then top that all off with a little bit of tankiness too. Ooh, the Blade of Justice looks like one of the ones I am most excited about. All right, and next up we've got the Skysplitter, which the rage effect looks pretty close to what the rage effect for the normal Skysplitter is, except that it's going to also include a breath of arrow lane, which is essentially all your sword chi, sword energy. They have different translations. As far as I understand, sword energy is the same thing as sword chi. It's going to basically double up on the rage effect, which is pretty powerful. So that's awesome. Again, the rage effect isn't like too crazy typically. It's all the other effects that I'm really curious about. So the epic effect on the Aileron sword, or Aileron sword, Blood Shadow. I don't even remember what the name is actually. the Aileron sword is the uncommon effect. So you're gonna get the extra sword chi during a combo. Period. You're gonna get extra attack, right? Just increasing. Great. The sword energy damage. The legendary effect was actually sword damage increase, but the rare effect is plus 50%, so a little bit extra more damage from the Aileron sword, just straight up. And then in terms of the mythic effect, you're going to get extra true damage equal to 5% of the target's current HP. Now, as far as I understand, this was capped at a certain amount of extra damage, so it wasn't just, you know, straight up 5% of current HP, but this was still an incredible amount of damage from the sword, the Skysplitter. It's one of the reasons why it was so impressive is that you were comboing, and every single time you're getting a sword chi launched, and then every single time you're getting that 5% of target's HP, which just increases your damage exponentially, right? This one, well, now, yes, we still have basically all these prior effects. Instead of getting the 5% current HP, it's a little bit different on the immortal effect, but then we also include the breath of Arrowlane is 60% sword energy damage and 60% normal attack damage. So this is a little bit interesting because now the Skysplitter is going to really, really improve on the normal attack damage increases, because your sword energy is no longer, or your sword chi is no longer just 100% sword chi damage. It now scales off of all the normal attack increases. And I believe, based on how many normal attack increases there are and some of the scaling that you can get, this is actually going to be able to scale way higher than just straight up sword chi. Again, the damage is split 60%, 60% for a total of 120% damage, assuming normal attack and sword energy or sword chi is the same. But normal attack is usually something that's a little bit easier to increase. Now, I'm not sure if this is going to be just a straight up buff, because there are a lot of skills that turn your, sword chi to like mega sword chi, or I forgot the skills, but this looks like a buff, especially since the mythic effect is to increase that damage by 30%. So again, if you take this 30% overall, so that's essentially another 18% on top of this, so it's essentially 78% sword chi damage, 78% normal attack damage. I would have a hard time believing that that combination of percentages would do less than the previous sword chis. And again, Skysplitter was already the top damage dealer. Blade of Justice still looks like a little bit of a way better increase, but it does make it so that you have to completely change up your build because of the way Raphael works. So Skysplitter looks like a big increase as well. And then you have this last one, which is, or the last effect, which is sword chi initially deals true damage equal to 3% of the target's current HP and 3% sword chi damage. True damage and sword energy damage cannot exceed 15 times the hero's attack. Now, if this is capped like I thought, to about the same amount of hero's attack, which I believe is the way that works, this means that the 3% and 3% is probably just going to cap out your attack every single time, which means you're just getting an extra 1% of the true damage that this could have potentially gotten. because the way the scaling works with sword chi and current HP is that you're almost always going to get about 15 times the hero's attack when you have everything working in synchronous. And that means that you're just getting an extra percentage on top of this whole thing. So the aileron sword looks absolutely exceptional as well in terms of what it's going to be capable of doing. And in terms of not changing up your build at all, I mean, the Skysplitter is looking to be probably the highest DPS period than it was even so before. Like it was already one of the highest DPS weapons, if not the highest DPS weapons in a lot of scenarios. And this looks like it's just going to increase that cap even further. So Skysplitter looks absolutely amazing. I think I'm more excited about the Blade of Justice because of the potential of that weapon. It's such a massive increase in options, and it's a weapon that people aren't using as frequently. But if you're using the Skysplitter, this looks like an amazing addition onto it and just a straight up massive DPS increase. The next one in the grouping is the Durian Hammer, and this one looks pretty exciting to me. The previous Durian Hammer didn't really have a great synergistic kind of component to it, but this one really does. So first one, the most important part, is actually the new rage effect. So before it was just deal damage and restore HP. The restoration of HP didn't really make sense to me because the whole point of Durian Hammer was like, I want to get a shield, I want to keep the shield up, and I want to be able to reflect damage with my shield. And if you have a shield all the time, the HP restoration is supposed to be superfluous, right? You don't need HP restoration if you're just preventing all the damage with a shield. With the new one, your rage skill is now just going to give you a shield equal to 40% of max HP, which looks incredible. That is absolutely incredible. And as we scale down into the effects here, the initial effects, you're still going to get the extra shield increasing by 10% upon a counterattack. You're going to get more global HP, and then you're going to have a different effect. So before, you had your shield became Durian shields, and then you're going to deal counter damage equal to 25% of the attack when attacked, and at Mythic it's 75%. So you're just going to smack them back with a bunch of damage every single time you're hit. The way the new effect's going to work is you're going to get the Durian shields now, but instead, while having the Durian shield, every 3 turns, that entire amount of damage that you've taken with that shield, you're going to hit back at them at a 50% value, which is amazing. At the same time, when you have the Mythic effect here, you're going to see here that each counterattack is going to increase the damage by 5%. This looks like a global damage increase, which is amazing, by the way. And that's just going to stack and stack and stack up to 4 times. And then you're going to, that damage that you're dealing every 3 turns is going to massively be increased. It is incredible. Not only that, you're also getting a 50% damage reduction from normal attacks, which is one of the main attacks in a lot of the mainline chapters. And you're going to, at the start of battle, get a 60% max HP shield. If you're looking to progress and not get one shot, the Durian Hammer is finally going to be able to give you that option. You're going to start battle 60% max HP immediately, giving you a 50% damage reduction on normal attacks, and start stacking up those counterattack damages over time. And then, as you're doing that, you're going to stack up the rage. Boom, you get a 40% max HP shield. Boom, stacks on top. Then you've got so much shielding that you're probably not even taking any damage. And in this time, your opponent's hitting you, and then you're just slapping them back with like a one shot, is how I imagine this to work. I don't know the multipliers. We don't know if this is going to be finalized, as with all the double S rank equipment, but this looks absolutely incredible. This kind of like is the mushroom hammer that I thought was like really quite solid in terms of damage reduction for your shields, but then you're taking that effect of getting shields and taking less damage when you have a shield, and then applying that to the Durian Hammer's effect, which is getting the Durian shields, which is the smack back when you get hit. It's kind of combining the best of both worlds with the mushroom hammer and the Durian Hammer, and you're getting an absolutely amazing effect as the outcome. This looks incredible, probably up there with the Blade of Justice in terms of how incredible this buff was. And again, that's not saying that the Skysplitter is still not going to be potentially the best weapon in the game. I'm just telling you that Durian Hammer and Blade of Justice were not considered like meta. This has enough bonuses to potentially bring it up to that level in terms of what they're giving us here. The next weapon we got up on the list is the Whisperer. Now, this one's rage effect is going to be pretty similar, just a big damage increase. As we scroll down for the Whisperer here, we can kind of see all of the effects here. The uncommon effect is just the global attack bonus, so we're just gonna get extra attack. The dagger damage, well, first off, you're gonna get the extra 2 damage upon weapon crit. That's just gonna stay the same. You're gonna get a massive 50% dagger damage over the 35%. And now, instead of, you know, just getting the extra rage from basic attacks, which was pretty consistent with all S rank equipments, you're now going to get the 25 rage on weapon critical hit. So you're going to get a lot more rage in general because of the guarantee crits that you're basically having every single round. Like, you have 100% crit chance when you have a late game Whisperer. You're still going to get the same exact mythic effect. So this one has probably the least changes in it, even less so than the Skysplitter, and that's probably because the Whisperer and the Skysplitter were already considered some of the best DPS, best weapons in the game, so they probably didn't want to give them too big of buffs. But the Gale Array's Immortal effect, or the double S rank equipment, is now going to give the throwing knife randomly gain rage reduction, shield break, weakness, poison, shrink, or vulnerability effects. So what's interesting about this is the damage increase on this is actually not that high, because yes, the dagger damage increase is nice, like the 50% from the 35% is nice, but actually most of your damage came from other effects most of the time with the Whisperer, things like your Dragon Girl, or other effects that you're getting rage skills because you have the rage from daggers skill activated. The dagger damage did constitute a portion of your damage, usually around, I think it was like 30 to 40%. So yes, it's going to increase your damage a decent amount, but the effect of this is really just getting the additional options for survivability by disrupting your opponent. The shield break, the rage reduction, making it so that your opponent can't hit rage skills, the weakness, the shrinking effect, reducing your target's damage, the vulnerability, the poison. The poison is probably the weakest of them all. But this is going to just give you more survivability in most cases, a little bit more damage as well, but I'm more excited about the survivability aspects of this. I don't know if this is actually that great of a buff. Now that I've kind of reviewed it, again, it's kind of tough because the translations are a little bit off in most cases. So it's kind of tough. And I'm trying to pull up something here in Capybara Go for us to review some of the skills and what it's kind of referring to when it says rage reduction. But I'm imagining that it's going to essentially act as some of the other skills that we have already in the current game. As an example here, let me just pull this up. It's a legendary skill, but this one right here, where we have like the shock discharge, where reduce enemy rage by 50% upon triggering lightning bolts. That's the type of stuff that I am kind of thinking that it will have. Or like the shrink spell, so shrinked enemies do less damage. That's what we're going to get effect of. And these are all pretty solid, no doubt about it, but they're not quite as impressive as some of the other, options that we have for some of the other double S rank equipment. So honestly, I think Whisperer is one of those ones, and I know I initially said this looks like a really good one for PvE, and I still think that is the case in terms of survivability, but I think with this, you need to weigh whether or not the damage increase from just using the Whisperer and the new survivability offsets the massive DPS and potential survivability that you have with other weapons. Honestly, this makes me want to swap over to the Skysplitter, which kind of stinks because I'm really in deep with the Whisperer, okay? And I don't really want to be swapping off to another weapon in the middle of my progression. Obviously, I would not recommend it. Even get your mythic and then use the swap talisman, right? That's always what I've recommended, and I still think that's going to be the case. But I'm not actually that impressed with the Whisperer here. I think that, again, it's going to give us a lot of survivability options, but I've kind of doubled back a little bit on my initial impressions. I don't think this is as big of a deal as some of the other weapons in terms of what buffs they're getting. So we will see with Whisperer. The next one we have is the Reaper Staff. Now, previously, the rage effect is just to cast 3 death bolts, which is a modification of your bolt dealing damage, and your bolt damage is going to increase as you go along in the battle, right? This was pretty good. It was a lot of damage, but the new rage skill is completely different. It is completely different. And so it's kind of a long read here, actually, and it's shifted how the Reaper staff plays, which I think is what people were a little bit worried about. So at the start of battle, you're going to enter charge, and during charge, the start of each turn, the hero gains an electric shield equal to 8% of max HP. While charge is active, normal attacks cannot be used. By the end of the third turn, you're going to release one Nasir Divine Thunder, dealing 150% lightning damage based on attack. And if controlled, immediately release the Nasir Divine Thunder that deals 50% and remove the charge effect. After Nasir Divine Thunder is released, charge starts again on the next turn. So what you're going to do is you're going to start your battle, you're going to get charged, you're going to get this shield. If you get controlled, you're going to immediately break out of it with the thunder, and then you're going to reset, kind of getting the charge again. But the basic premise of this is, remember, you're not going to be able to use what's it called, the normal attacks. So while charge is active, normal attacks cannot be used, which means you can't be comboing in theory, right? Because combos are normal attacks. So if you can't be normal attacking, the entire combo based strategy of a lot of Reaper staffs is completely down the drain. And that means that for your Reaper staff users, you're going to have to revamp your entire build if you're trying to go for a Reaper staff immortalization. Or I say immortalization because that's just kind of like the next step up after Mythic for a lot of the things in the game, but for double S equipment. Now, for the rest of the stats here, you still get one lightning bolt each turn. You're still going to get extra bolt damage. This one gave you lightning damage and then bolt damage. This one's just going to give you 50% lightning damage. Now, during charge, so during your acceleration, lightning damage increases each turn by 30%, 60%, and 90%, and each turn the Nasir Divine Thunder multipliers increases by 50%, 200%, and 400%. So you're just essentially scaling. So the idea here is you don't want to be CC'd. If you don't get CC'd, then you're going to launch this massive thunderbolt that's going to basically one-shot, right? Okay. Now, on top of that, you're going to get extra shielding with the electric shield, and all lightning has a 40% chance to become death lightning. Death lightning damage increases by 20% each time it's cast, up to 6 times maximum. So now you're going to kind of pick up your lightning skills and get this lightning that's just triggering, and then you're going to blast someone with a massive bolt at the end of that 3 turns. And then while you're having the shield, you're going to get reduced skill damage. Again, if we go back up to review that rage skill, because this is what it's all about, you're going to enter charge. You're going to basically scale up until the 3rd turn, and you're going to release this Divine Thunder. That's kind of how this works. This is the rage skill. So it's a very different play style. It's more of like a scale, boom, instead of like the immediate burst DPS that Reaper staff was used to. And it's not combo based at all, because before it was just, oh, I'm gonna rage, I'm gonna use my death bolts, these bolts are gonna any other bolt that I have can become death bolts, then I have this big scaling with bolt damage and lightning damage. That was kind of the game plan. This is a lot different. I want a shield, I want to scale, blast, scale, blast. Again, lightning damage increases each turn, and each turn the Divine Thunder multiplier increases. So you want to be scaling that because the damage increase that you're getting is massive. I am not sure if this is actually a buff to the Reaper staff. This one is probably the hardest one to evaluate for me. In theory, its playstyle would be better because you have a little bit more survivability introduced into it. But the worry I see is that survivability enough so that the Reaper staff user can actually stay alive in those 3 turns before they blast off with a Nasir Divine Thunder? I think that's going to be a pretty hard ask in PvE. I think it'll work really nicely in PvP, though. I do think it'll still be a chart topper for PvP. Your ability to control enemies doesn't really happen all that often, and the massive damage reduction that they've given us for PvP means that you're going to be able to get to these 3 turns and then blast someone out of the map. So I think in PvP, it's still going to be very good. I think in PvE, though, it's probably a bit of a nerf, actually, which is kind of unfortunate. I don't know, though. I could be completely wrong. I think if you're getting one-shot by a lot of units, then this is going to be tough to kind of scale, right? But if you're not, then it's probably a buff. It's just a matter of late game PvE options. Are you still going to be able to do that? Probably not. And that brings us to the end of the weapons, and we get to start off the next with the Crimson Dracula, which is a Dragon's Breath armor upgrade. This one and both armor pieces, instead of getting a different rage skill, because that doesn't exist on armor, you just get a huge bonus HP. Like, you go from 10% global HP to 50% global HP. And so this is one of the things where, like, if I have a double S rank armor piece, now Reaper's Staff might actually be good because I could survive with not only the extra HP, but also the damage reduction that the Crimson Dracula Chestplate is actually providing. You're still going to get the Dragon's Breath armor effect, where it's restoring HP, but it's every 3 turns, not each round. And it's restoring 40% max HP instead of attack as HP. So again, it's not quite like a massive increase. It's 15% global HP increase, because technically it's 25% here and 10% here for the Dragon's Breath armor. But you do get the damage reduction, which didn't exist before. And now you get, when it restores HP, you're going to get 30% damage reduction. So if you're able to survive the 3 turns, you're going to get 30% damage reduction, which is incredible. And you're going to get, on the mythic effect, that increased to 45% damage reduction and 60% HP restoration. Now, remember, the way this is worded, and again, I don't know if this is a translation issue, or I don't know if someone else can inform me in the comments section down below. Final damage reduction is after all the other damage reduction effects that we have. That is incredible. That's going to really allow you to survive, assuming you can get past the first couple of turns. That's the assumption. And then you're going to get this heal effect of 50%, or overheal effect of 50% of the overheal converting to a shield. Now, what this means is, assuming you're able to heal up to full with, like, let's say you're playing Whisper. I mean, you're playing the Crimson Dracula Chestplate, and you heal up to full, and then you get this trigger. It's 30% of your max HP essentially converting to a shield. And then you're going to get 45% of damage reduction on top of that, which is going to really allow that shield to survive. Now, this one in Dragon's Breath armor, the mythic effect didn't really matter. And the restoration of HP is the only thing that really mattered. In the mid game, that would be amazing. But when you're getting one shot, it didn't matter at all. This looks like it's actually going to help you survive. It's going to give you more HP. It's going to give you damage reduction. And it's going to give you a shield and more damage reduction, assuming you can survive the first couple of turns in a battle. But that's the key. You got to survive those first couple of turns. I would imagine, and assuming this starts at turn 1, I mean, I don't actually know if this is a turn 1 start or after 3 turns you're going to get the restoration of HP, because it's possible that on turn 0 you're going to get 60% HP, which is 30% HP shield plus a 45% damage reduction, and this could be exceptionally powerful at increasing the tankiness. I'd love some clarification on this. I am not the utmost expert on everything Capybara Go. And so I would love to see what this would mean. And I'm also a little bit leery in terms of translation. I don't know if these are translated differently or whatnot. Again, for example, we have sword chi and sword energy. Like, these happen all the time. So just a minor change in wording can really change the difference. But let's say this does start at turn 0 and you get the 30% HP shield plus 45% damage reduction plus the 20% damage reduction increase plus the 50% HP. This could be way better than the revival cape. This could actually allow you to survive and not die in the first place, which is the only reason revival cape is viable at all. Like, if the revival cape didn't do that, then people would be flocking back to the Dragon's Breath armor because of the restoration of HP. Obviously, because you're not dying, the HP restoration is good, but you usually die in late game. So this is where it gets interesting. And I think Crimson Dracula Chestplate actually has an opportunity to do so. And then we have the revival cape, which, same thing, you're going to get extra HP and damage reduction as compared to the new Crimson Dracula. But now, instead of getting this revival with a little bit of attack and defense was a really poor scaling stat typically, you're now going to get a full 100% HP revival. 100% full HP revival. You're going to get 15% damage reduction at the first 3 turns of battle. And then after your revival, you're just going to get extra 10% damage until end of battle, period. So I actually don't think this is seemingly as strong as the Crimson Dracula. Assuming the Crimson Dracula can keep you alive, the Crimson Dracula is just #1 best armor piece. If it's not quite enough, the revival cape is going to be the de facto one as always. But if you think about what this is offering, you get the initial damage reduction, which is in theory going to keep you alive. And then you get revived after that damage reduction falls off because you get hit by a big thing. And then you're going to revive with like a glass cannon effect. You're going to get less damage reduction, but more final damage because your damage reduction fell off. And therefore, you hope to burst out your opponent. I think that this could be interesting because we've seen a change in which you want more damage within mainline and hard mode battles. And if that's the case, getting one shot is something that might actually be beneficial to you because you get extra damage from the revival cape now, whereas the Crimson Dracula is not going to give you that extra damage. It is purely built on survivability. But I do think overall the Crimson Dracula seems to scale better than the new Reinhardt's Resolve, and the revival cape in general is seemingly just not really going to benefit you all that much if you're just able to live through things instead of just dying and trying to revive and bursting out your opponents afterwards. There's not really much to say about the Reinhardt's Resolve because it's still doing the same effect in essence as it was before, like same revival, same everything, except now you get that initial damage reduction, you get the global HP and damage reduction, which we already talked about as being excellent additions. It's going to help you survive in general. And now you get that damage increase after you get one shot. The problem I see with this is that if you got one shot, the damage increase is probably not going to help you enough because at that point you should have CC'd them and one shot them in the initial part, but you still get the revival. So maybe that's still going to be good. Again, it really comes down to, okay, if we get these new S rank, double S rank equipments, and we're able to essentially refine them with the new stats that we get, and we get the damage reduction, we get the extra HP, and we get all these things, is it going to change to where we actually have the opportunity to live? And if that's the case, Revival Cape will no longer be the best gear piece. It'll be the Crimson Dracula. And I do think this actually has potential for being the case. Of course, I don't know how badly the damage scales. And so I could be completely wrong about that. It really is going to come down to testing as to, okay, if you play it, are you getting substantial survivability increase? If not, yes, Revival Cape's still going to be the default go-to. If you are, then Dragon's Breath Armor is probably going to be the go-to at the current moment. So this one I'm a little bit unsure about, but in terms of my favorites overall, guys, I really do think that the two that look the most interesting to me are the Durian Hammer and the Blade of Justice. And that's awesome to see, to be honest, because these two were both kind of like that off-meta options. Like, people were like, oh yeah, you could play Durian Hammer. People wanted to, but it wasn't like, oh yeah, I'm going Whisper or Skysplitter or Reaper Staff. The other three, Skysplitter just seemingly got a buff, right? You get extra attack, you get extra sword damage, looks like you scale off your normal attack damage. I think Skysplitter is the biggest winner out of all these because it's already good, and this is just going to increase it even that much more. I think the one that I'm most unsure about is definitely the Reaper Staff. It's going to completely change the play style and kind of change how people want to go with the Reaper Staff. I think this one's the most up in the air. But the Whisper, just seemingly like you're getting more value out of your daggers, and that's cool and all, but it looks more of like a PvE survivability focus, which could combo really nicely. Obviously, you're going to get a little bit of extra damage with like the weakness and the shield break and all this stuff, but I think it's more of like a survivability aspect, which could work really nicely with the new Crimson Dracula, so maybe that's the option there. And then, of course, the Durian Hammer just looks like an absolute tank, like an absolute tank that's going to blow people up. I'm really curious if the damage that you're dealing with this, though, is enough, because remember, they shrunk down the rounds for normal and mainline battles. So that's the only concern I see with this. But outside of that, it looks like it's going to be a big buff, and I'm really curious about it. But let me know what you think in the comment section down below. This was a little bit of a deeper dive, directly comparing some of the stats and giving you more flushed out thoughts than the initial kind of run through of some of the double S rank equipments. I'm really excited, actually, even though it might not be a free-to-play option. As you can see here, it looks like we need 60 of these cubes, which are the cubes that you need from the World Martial Arts Tournament. And, you know, this player is 1 trillion player, and so I'm sure they won't have any trouble whatsoever, but I don't know if we're going to be able to really push the cubes as free-to-play players. That is the biggest concern I have. The rest of it looks absolutely sweet, but are you going to be able to get the cubes is the biggest question of them all, and we won't know that until the updates actually dropped. Let me know what your favorite is here on the list. Honestly, this makes me really want to go with Raphael and Blade of Justice. That's what I really want to do. I'm really excited about that. I think it's going to be really fun. And if the Ninja Turtle event comes back, which it will come back around the same time that the update drops, I should say around the same time, it's about a month after, then we might be in a situation where everyone's summoning for a bunch of stars on Raphael, just because it's going to give you the biggest bonus, because it works so well with the Blade of Justice, especially this Blade of Justice getting a massive increase in DPS with the new double S ring equipment. Compared to anything else, this is probably the biggest DPS increase. Will it outpace Skysplitter? I don't know. That's what for the professional testers are, but I'm hoping, and I cannot wait to see. It is an extremely exciting time, and hopefully we'll be able to participate, my fellow low spenders or free to play players or buy to play players. I cannot wait to see the outcome. Thanks for watching, everyone. Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you all for the next one.